I am excited for the play-in tournament to begin. Again, it just adds a whole nother level of intrigue that I think was missing for much of the regular season. When you look at all the star players that were inactive due to injuries or missed time for personal reasons, but predominantly because of injuries, there was a litany of guys that did not play. And so what it ended up happening was it added an additional 4 or 5 teams into the mix, into the fold, to make the regular season that much more compelling, to give 4 to 5 more fan bases an additional reason to tune in and night out to support their teams, to watch their teams. And so when I look at now the play-in tournament and we start in the Western Conference, there's some great matchups. Again, you've got the Lakers and you've got the Golden State Warriors matching up in the play-in 7 versus the AC. This is kind of a matchup that NBA fans salivate at. They clamor for. You've got LeBron and AD, and you've got Steph Curry, but especially LeBron and Steph Curry, who, of course, have had their run-ins in the finals multiple times. Their postseason history is extensive. And so it's going to be extremely fun to watch. Again, 2 of some of the hottest teams coming into this matchup, but I think the Lakers obviously took 2 of 3 against the Warriors this year. And in fact, they should have taken all 3, but they lost the very first game of the season that they played to the Warriors, 115 to 113. The only reason why they lost that game, they led by 15 points at halftime. They led by double digits heading into the fourth quarter, and they just took their foot off the gas. And ultimately, the Warriors staged a bit of a comeback, and props to them. But then you look at the other 2 wins for the Lakers, and it was a landslide. 117 to 91 in the first matchup, 128 to 97 at Golden State in the second matchup post that initial game of the year. So the second and third games against the Warriors, the Lakers absolutely destroyed them. And again, the momentum in the playoffs is everything. The playoffs are about momentum, which teams are playing their best basketball at the right time of the year. And when you look at the Lakers, yes, they had a bit of that rough patch, but they've won now 5 straight games. They're getting healthier and more complete at the right time. Obviously, Anthony Davis has come back and looked like his dominant self. LeBron and Schroeder have returned to fit in seamlessly. THT and Kuzma are playing with tremendous confidence right now, so the depth is really good and really strong for this Lakers squad. And I know that the Golden State Warriors have also been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. You've got a guy in Steph Curry who just dropped 46 points last night, the third time he has scored at least 40 points in a game this month, which is only 8 games, the 11th time all season that he has scored at least 40-plus points. They've won 6 straight games. So I recognize the Golden State Warriors have been extremely, extremely streaky right now down the stretch, but there's no Kelly Oubre. And when you have to honestly assess this matchup and you say, okay, if you want to give the Warriors the benefit of the doubt and say Golden State's playing their best basketball of the season right now, if the Warriors are playing their best basketball of the season with the compilation of players that they have versus the Lakers, who are playing their best basketball of the season, if the Lakers and the Warriors are both playing their best basketball at the end of the year, the Lakers are going to get the nod. The talent just doesn't match up. So for me, I think it will be a tough out. There's no question. I think that Golden State in a 1-game scenario in an NCAA tournament type of atmosphere, there's no question that the Warriors still have a legitimate shot. This isn't a best of 7, but at the end of the day, even in this one game, I think that at home, the Lakers just have a little bit more depth. They can hone in a little bit more on Steph, and I think that they'll pull away and ultimately prevail. But that'll be a fascinating 7 versus 8 matchup. And then the second one, the Memphis Grizzlies and the San Antonio Spurs. Listen, Memphis has always been one of those teams that just continues to play scrappy, gritty basketball. They always find themselves in the thick of it, in the throngs of the final couple of seeds in the Western Conference. And I think this is going to be the second straight year that they finished with the 9 seed. Again, entering last year was the bubble, but it came down to that matchup against the Portland Trailblazers that ultimately left them a little bit short. But now an opportunity. I think they're going to beat the Spurs. The Spurs took the first game against the Memphis Grizzlies. But again, that was the very first game of the season. And that was with LaMarcus Aldridge on the team before he obviously retired. And then when the Grizzlies and the Spurs matched up back-to-back days in San Antonio midway through the season, Memphis absolutely destroyed them. They beat them by 17 and 31 points in back-to-back games in San Antonio. And so, to me, I kind of like the Grizzlies in this matchup. Again, I think that they play with a certain freedom and no strings attached, very unhinged and raw, this Memphis Grizzlies team. But Ja Morant is playing really well. Dylan Brooks is an underrated player as well. Jaren Jackson Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Clark. This team's got some playmakers, and I think that ultimately, again, the Spurs, yes, they made the 10th seed. I just don't see them really winning this game ultimately. They may. I don't see them winning. And then when you shift to the Eastern Conference and you look at those matchups, there's a fascinating matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. The Boston Celtics, all of a sudden, I have no faith in the Boston Celtics right now. They've lost 6 of their last 8 games. They've been faltering. They've lost they've been beaten really badly by poor teams. And again, it's all sparked by the unfortunate injury to Jaylen Brown. Unfortunately, when he got injured, that was kind of the end of the Celtics this season. And it unfortunately culminated what's been just a really troubling and really inconsistent year for a Celtics squad that had such high expectations entering the season. This is a team that had made 2 straight conference final appearances. And now they come up a little bit short. Or not 2 straight, but 2 out of their last 3 years they'd reached the conference finals, the Eastern Conference Finals. And to be honest, the Washington Wizards have always been my dark horse team to make the postseason, and I think that they're hitting their stride at the right time. They finished the season 17-6 over their last 23 games. This is a team that is really starting to click. Russell Westbrook is obviously playing at an extremely high level. Bradley Beal is back into the fold. He's returned and is healthy from his hamstring injury. So I like what the Wizards are doing, and I think that ultimately, again, the Celtics, yes, they took 2 of 3 against the Wizards in the year, but that was with Jaylen Brown. He's gone. This team doesn't have the same type of cohesion it once had. And I think that the Wizards will go into TD Garden and beat the Boston Celtics in that 7-8 matchup to secure the 7th seed. And man, what a storyline that would be if you've got Russell Westbrook and the Washington Wizards against Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets. The first season that both Westbrook and Durant are in the Eastern Conference playoffs, they would face off against one another. That would be absolutely sensational. Then you got the Indiana Pacers and the Charlotte Hornets. And had you asked me this question, I'd say about 3 weeks ago, I would have told you the Charlotte Hornets would blow out the Indiana Pacers. I used to be really high on the Indiana Pacers. I loved the compilation of players that they have. I loved their roster makeup. Malcolm Brogdon is a tremendously underrated player, a borderline all-star this year. Domantas Sabonis was an all-star this year. Karis LeVert has been playing exceptionally well. And I really liked when they had TJ Warren, and then all of a sudden he missed the entire season, or practically the entire season. Then all of a sudden you hear all these reports about a fractured locker room and a fractured relationship between the head coach, Nate Bjorgen, and the players. And so I lost some faith in the Indiana Pacers, but they were able to hold on to one of those Final Four seeds. But when I look at the Charlotte Hornets, this was a team who was rolling with Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball. And unfortunately, since Gordon Hayward has kind of re-injured himself a bit, they've lost 15 of their last 21 games. They've lost 5 straight games, and I love LaMelo Ball. I think he should be the NBA's Rookie of the Year, but I just think that their inexperience and their youth will come through ultimately in a play-in game like this against the Indiana Pacers, who again will be playing at home. And I would love to see the Charlotte Hornets advance. Believe me, I love LaMelo Ball. That would be a tremendous story. But if I have to honestly assess where I think they are right now, I just don't think they are ready. I don't think they're mature enough yet. Had they had Gordon Hayward, or if he somehow is active in the next couple days, then maybe I'll change my mind and I'll pick the Charlotte Hornets. But at this very moment in time, with the rosters that are currently constructed, I'll probably have to edge towards the Indiana Pacers would be my guess.